Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to be talking about a creaking farm, as I did build one in Bedrock Edition, and that one didn't work in Java, but in a recent update, I think it was snapshot 24W45A, they did fix the bug where wolves wouldn't damage the creaking. But because that didn't work in Java, I have been experimenting with a different type of creaking farm inside of a survival world, and you can see that I have got something that works pretty well behind me. Now I will take this inside of creative mode because I think we can improve this so much, but how this works is we have some creaking hearts behind these blocks. So if I quickly just take off, you can see that there's creaking hearts behind these leaf blocks. And then we just have a clock that is pushing pistons back and forth, breaking any resin that spawns. Now, if I was to sit here punching these, you can see the resin spawns, then the pistons move, breaking the blocks, and that is how this farm works. And it works pretty well because you can see we have a load of creakings here, and because we have a sweeping edge, it hits all of them at once. But we're now in a creative test world because I want to experiment with this farm to see if we can make it better in any way. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have built up off the ground by at least 8 to 10 blocks. The higher you go up, the better, just because then no mobs can spawn or the creaking cannot spawn on any other block apart from the blocks you want it to spawn on. Now, if you don't want to go up in the air, you can spawn proof with things like leaves. But I think it's best just to build up because it saves a lot more time. Now, next thing we want to do is lay the blocks out that we want the resin to spawn on. Now, inside of the snapshots, they made it so resin can only spread to pale oak based blocks. So this is the log, the wood, and then the stripped log and wood. So it has to be one of these 4 blocks. If we was to have, for example, pale moss, the resin would not spread to these blocks, making the farm not work. So before we do that, let's quickly just build our spawning platform. So I'm currently experimenting because I want to do something like this. If I was to make this platform, so this platform would be where the creakings spawn. Now, creakings cannot spawn in water, so that means flowing or still water. So that means we have to remove the water and place it back on some kind of timer or activation. And I think this works because then the creakings should be pushed. So let's quickly just test to see if this works. Let's now set up a few creaking hearts as our tester. I also want to make sure that I break all of these blocks and also put leaves above, just because obviously creakings can spawn on them and we don't want them to. So if I do something like that, the creakings would spawn on this platform, which you can see is happening. And then if I now was to place down the water, they are all being pushed. But the question is, if I was to now stand on this platform and look at them, they are still pushed. And they don't fight the water stream when they are being looked at. So this water platform works. We'll do the redstone for this in a second. I now just want to work on the next part, which I want to leave a gap between the fences and this, because obviously the resin will have to spawn on this block. So this is going to be the block the resin spawns on. And I think if we go up to about there, this can be a maximum of 12 blocks. So there we go. That is one wall done. Now, we are going to quickly just place down a load of leaves here, and then also one back. Now, the reason for this is just so the creakings cannot spawn up here, because that is obviously not what we want. All the creakings we want to spawn in this platform. And then the next thing we are going to do is we want to have the creakings, which another fact about the creaking heart is the creaking heart will only spread to adjacent logs. So for example, if we was to have an air gap here, and then we was to have the creaking hearts here, the resin would not spread to these blocks. So you have to make sure the creaking hearts are touching the blocks you want to spread to. And then we are just going to do a checkerboard pattern of the creaking hearts. So by starting from the bottom, we can then obviously adjust this if we need to, which we do need to adjust this to be 1 higher just so it fits in, which is totally fine. And then here, what we want to do, because we cannot have a creaking heart here, because obviously there needs to be a pale oak log above and below for it to activate, we are just going to do 2 pale oak logs right there, and then a creaking heart there. Now, you could obviously remove this block, it's not really needed. And then the same with the top right here. Once again, we can't have one here because there needs to be a block there. And we want leaves at the top there, so we are just going to leave it with another log like so. Another thing I do recommend is I recommend building this part in the daytime, just because then you don't have creaking spawning all over the place. Because currently, if this was being done at night, creakings will be spawning all on these blocks here, and then that would obviously be annoying because they'll hit you while you're trying to build. So that is all we're going to do for now, because this one wall will produce quite a lot. Now, we can also then copy this wall and paste it on all 4 sides if we really wanted to, but I don't think that's needed, at least not yet. The next thing we need to do is the redstone here, so the creakings will be pushed down into this hole. And the reason we want the creakings pushed down into a central area is just so then when you hit them, it hits all of them at once. Because obviously if they were spawned on this platform, one would probably spawn there, one would spawn there. And then if we was to hit this one, it wouldn't hit these two, meaning the farm would be a lot less efficient. So for this to work, we are just going to grab dispensers and I think place them on the 4 corners with then water buckets inside. And I think I can just copy and paste that. So now all of these will spawn water when they are powered. And we now just need to power them. So if I just place, let's grab a different type of block so we know where the redstone is. So I've created some kind of circuit here. Now this needs to be filled with redstone and also redstone repeaters. So that leaves us like no space underneath to work with. I guess we could probably build the hopper clock like here, but then it'll probably interact with this redstone line. So I think we're just going to build it on the outside and then we'll just obviously spawn proof it. So let's build it, I guess, right here. There we go. We now have the redstone clock built, which looks just like that. And then what we want to do is we now want to have a source coming from here. So if I just place a block right there, then a repeater right there, and then we're going to place another block like so. And I can break all of these blocks because they're not used. I guess let's get this redstone line placed in. So this at the moment will be powered, which is exactly what we want. And then if I now just go through placing down all of the redstone. So I guess one way I could fix that is just by having this line here power both of these, and then this line here power nothing. So I'm now just like experimenting with the timings of this because we want to make sure it works, and I've just replaced this repeater with an observer because we want the dispensers to pulse twice when they do pulse, because we want the water to be placed, all the creakings to be pushed, and then we want them to pulse off again so the creakings can spawn if they do need to. And it's about to become nighttime, so we might be able to test this. So creakings are spawning on these blocks, and all we need to do is just place down leaves to then stop them from spawning up here. So I've set it to daytime just so I can spawn proof all this, and there we go, it's now all spawn proof. So if I set the time back to nighttime so we can test it once again, you can see all the creakings are spawning on that platform, which is pretty good. And then once it turns, yes, there we go. They are all now being pushed down into that hole. Okay, there's a lot of them, but they are still falling down. They're not like pushing each other too much, which is also good. Now, the reason I have this on a clock and not just activating once per night time is because normally not all the creakings spawn at the same time. So when these power, you might see a few more creaking spawn, like that one right there. And there we go, we've seen quite a few of them. So we want this to power multiple times because, once again, not all the creakings will spawn the first time. And if we leave this water powered until the nighttime ends, these creakings we've got right here wouldn't be able to spawn. Okay, maybe it can be slightly quicker. So maybe I'll do half a stack of blocks rather than 64 I think was in there, or maybe 48. Let's enchant this with Sweeping Edge 3. No other enchantments matter. The only enchantments that matter is Mending, Unbreaking, and Sweeping Edge. Sharpness will do nothing to these, neither will Smite or anything like that. And now, one other thing I do quickly want to mention. You can see that resin has spawned on this backside, which we don't want, because we want the resin to spawn on this one side, because pistons cannot push the creaking heart, meaning that this side here will never be farmable. And there is 2 ways you can fix this. First of all, you can place resin down on every single block yourself if you wanted to, or you can just spawn proof it with leaves. And I think spawn proofing it with leaves is the easier way to go. So that is what I'm going to quickly just do. I'm going to place leaf blocks on every single possible spawn block apart from the ones we want it to spawn on. So I've given myself night vision just because it's nighttime and we're going to be working a lot in the night. So now I've now done the back. I also want to do the sides just because we don't want any of it spawning here either. And then if we quickly just head over this side as well and do this side. And then now what I want to do is I want to hit the creakings again to show you how much we get. So let's quickly just break all of this as well, just so we can start fresh. So now if I was to go down here and once again hit these creakings, you will see that they all hit. And this board is completely full. There are a few spots, but that's totally fine. I think that's because the creaking hearts don't quite reach down to these areas. Now let's set up the next system, which is collecting the resin. And that just requires some pistons at the top and the bottom. So if I just place down the pistons down here, so we're going to place the bottom ones so they are directly below the pale oak logs. And this is the stripped. We don't want them below these back ones. And that is something I've just noticed. There is some resin at the bottom here, but we'll fix that after. And then the ones at the top here, we are going to place one block above. So there's going to be an air block, and then the piston is going to go on this block. And the reason for that is just because these bottom ones will push up. These top ones will then push back down. So we are going to place target blocks along like so. And then we are just going to grab some more of our redstone based blocks, which we are using spruce in this case. And they're going to go adjacent like that. I'm just going to, for this example, create a new clock for this system. This clock here is a bit too slow. Now, if you really wanted to save resources, you could rewire this clock to power these as well. But it might mean that you lose out on resources. That is now the bottom ones powered. And we also want to power these top ones as well, which I think the best way to do that is just have a line of redstone like that. Then some redstone on top of that. And once again, spawn proofing is something we need to remember, so I'm just going to place leaves above that. And then, like that, we now just need to create a clock going up, which I think we're just going to use redstone torches in this case. And this redstone torch is going to go all the way to the top like so. So now, them pistons will push when that goes up. So now is just the clock system, which I think we're just going to use repeaters. And I'm going to use 2 repeaters just so then it's a little bit slower. So now I can place leaves on all of these blocks. But first let's place all the repeaters, which we're going to place every single one of them on 4 ticks of delay. And then we can obviously adjust that to the timings we need afterwards. So now if I just grab a button, power that and then break that instantly so the clock starts. That is now going and you can see all the resin has fallen. And that should now work. If we have a look around here, you can see it's being pushed up, then down. One other thing that we are going to have to do, though, is we are going to have to remove these fences and just replace glass here. And that is just because we did see some of the resin get stuck on these fences. And obviously, we don't want that to happen. And there we go. Now, this should pretty much work. There is one other thing we do need to do though, and that is the collection system. Now, one thing about the collection system, normal hoppers are not fast enough for this. So this is what I currently have for the collection system. I just have a hopper minecart going under these blocks, which all the resin will fall on, and I just have some hoppers at the end here, which will pick it all up. Now, I don't think this will last for if you go AFK for a full Minecraft night. I think that these hoppers are way too slow, and you'll probably need to add a lot more. But once again, this is just for testing. So now I think it's time for us to test. If I set the time to night, you can see all the creakings are spawning. And we have an issue, which now is the good time to bug test. First off, there is a creaking right here, which I just forgot to place down 2 leaf blocks. So let's quickly just set the time to day, and then let's fix this. So if I just place leaves going all the way down like so, and if I set it to nighttime again, let's quickly just have a look around that no creakings are spawning anywhere else but that platform in the center. And some are spawning up here. Okay, it seems like I forgot a few there. And they can also spawn on glass, which is interesting. So we're just going to have to place down leaves on top of all this glass as well. So there we go. I've now placed leaves on top of the glass and on top of the few blocks I've missed. So now if I set it to nighttime once again, there should be no creakings anywhere but in that platform. And that is just something we are going to test. So now they're all spawning. And from looking at it, I don't think there are any creakings anywhere else. There are none underneath. None are obviously on the ground because it's quite high. And yes, the creakings are just falling within this platform, which is pretty good. So now the creakings are slowly falling down. There is some collision right there, but that's totally fine. They'll eventually all make their way. So now what we need to do is we now need to go down here and start hitting these. Now there is one thing that I quickly want to mention. First of all, Creakings can only produce resin every 5 seconds. So sitting here spamming your sword isn't going to matter. I would recommend setting some kind of auto clicker for every 5 seconds because that is then max efficiency and you're not wasting any durability or anything. But also make sure when you are hitting that your hit doesn't match up with when the pistons push, because if I hit at the time the pistons push, no resin will be produced because the blocks are technically moving blocks. So now what I think we are going to do is I want to test this and see how much we can get in one Minecraft night. So I'm currently just sitting here farming the Creakings. It's been about 5 minutes of this night time. And this is how you AFK here. You just set up with a sword. I have a auto clicker clicking every 5 seconds because that is the most efficient clicks. Every 5 seconds is when they can produce more resin. Now, I did die a second ago. I jumped off to see how the storage system was going. Forgot I was in survival mode and died. So we did lose a little bit of time. But I can tell you, the storage system definitely isn't good enough. I filled up my whole inventory just by picking up the items on the ground. And there we go. They are now all despawned. So that is now this AFK time over. Let's quickly just turn off the auto clicker and remove that. Let's now go inside of, yes, okay. So there is still a lot more resin down here. And if I quickly just go in survival mode and pick it all up, once again, we have not quite filled our inventory. So let's now see how much we got in one Minecraft night. I did lose a few minutes from where I died, but it was only a few seconds, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So I've now sorted out all the chests and emptied the ones and just filled up the ones over this side. So from one Minecraft night, which is about 10 to 15 minutes, we got a full double chest, and then just over a little bit more of a single chest. So that is 3 chests completely full. That is almost 10 stacks of resin blocks just from one Minecraft night. So I think the best way we could probably do this with a collection system is by having a hopper minecart on every single one of these. So I'll place one there, then I'll break that rail and place another one right here. And then that means every single block has their own hopper minecart. Now this would cost a lot more resources, and you can obviously always just cut back on how many creaking hearts you have if you don't want to spend all this, as obviously the amount of resin you produce depends on how many creakings are spawned, and that can be altered with the creaking hearts. And I think from here all we need to do is just then set up the chests, so carry on down here. Now, you can also then send this into a crafter system, but I think for now, just so we know how to set this up, we're not going to do that. So now if I have a boat here, now we want to make sure the boat covers all 3 hoppers. So if this one, quickly, we can do it by checking the hitboxes, which is F3 and B. So this boat, we want to cover these 3 hoppers, and that currently isn't, so I just need to bring it forward a little bit. Okay, so my bad. Boats can only cover 2 hoppers, I think. So this boat will affect these 2. Then if we just have another one affecting them 2, then we have one affecting them 2, and then one affecting them 2, and then finally one for them 2. So every 2 hoppers will lead into one boat. Now I might not have aligned this perfectly. If you guys do build this, then you can make sure each boat does lead up to the 2 hoppers just by moving them and getting in them. So I don't think the minecarts are high enough, so we need to place rails on every single one of them. So I recommend doing that afterwards. I recommend placing them down, breaking the rails, and then replacing the rails after. And you can now see all the resin has been picked up. This storage system might still not be quick enough, but that is the one we're going to go for now. And that is where I'm going to end this video. It was quite fun to work on this farm, and especially improve it from what I built inside of survival mode. This farm is way more efficient. I think the one I built in survival mode produced about a stack of resin blocks in a Minecraft night. I will also have this world downloadable in the description if you do want to download it and build it inside of your world, or even if you want to adjust it to make it better or make some adjustments to it however you like, then that will be linked in the description for you guys to download. If you guys like tutorials like this, then do leave a like and subscribe as it does really help out. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.